Hello, my name is Brandon Jones, and this is week 9 of Jettisoned, my Capstone Project. Alright, so in this week, I put a major emphasis on reworking this networking. In the previous week, it was just kind of a debug thing. So I have a host game, so if the host clicks this, they can go in and register a game, and they'll wait for an opponent. You can click back at any time and undo that, essentially. Finding game, they're sent to this, and they're waiting to see a game. That was my previous game that hadn't been cleared out quite yet. So I'm gonna be looking for a game, and on the other screen I'll host a game, and you'll see it pop up here. Okay, so this is the game that connects. So the other person on the other screen will be waiting for you to join them. So if you click this, you'll wait on the host to start the game, and you have the option to close the connection. So on the other screen, I'll click Start Game button. Now, in this week, I did a lot of testing. So I had a whole bunch of people come in and play test the game. One of the things that they said was that the music was too loud, which is completely understandable because at the moment I have no way to turn down the volume, essentially. There is no option screen. So in the coming few days, I'm going to be, adding that so that we can turn it down and maybe start them at half volume so you can turn it down or up. Alright, so in our testing, our major priority was to test the flow of the game and the controls. So I brought this up to the players testing and went from there, and they told me a lot of their feedback as far as how the controls of the game went. In this first phase, the fortification phase, you select the thing you want to put down and you drag and drop it. This is generally well received by the testers. They like the general drag and drop, especially with some things that are kind of abnormally shaped. You can't just click and then click on a tile and it work because you wouldn't know exactly where these things are going. So this is going to be, or this control scheme turned out to work out pretty well. One thing that was not very well received was that you could drag off the screen and destroy an object. That wasn't really brought across really well, and almost none of the people playing figured that out on their own. In order to do this in the next coming weeks, I'm going to try and add some kind of feedback here on the outskirts of the map, maybe a trash can icon up at the top to say, hey, you can throw it away here. Or maybe I'll just make the outskirts turn red during the time that you can throw it out. So if they're dragging it here, it might turn red or something while they're doing it. On top of that, the only other thing that wasn't very well received, we had the rotate button, which people saw and liked. The only thing here is the sleep button. Sleep, one in a word, sleeping. When you're playing against someone, you kind of assume that that might be a pause button or something along those lines. So that was kind of, no one really knew what it was, and if you click it, nothing happens unless you have something grabbed. So I'm going to do a few things to remedy that, as well as to make the sleep button in the sleep phase itself a little bit more readable. Other than that, though, the fortification phase went well. People, after a while, they clicked on these doors and moved from stage to stage, but it wasn't very apparent at first. They kind of accidentally clicked it. So that was something. But once they clicked it, they kind of got it and they thought it was interesting. So I might do some more to reinforce that. Um, Moving on to the other phase once I set it up on the other side. Okay. Oh, I didn't build this. So as far as the infiltration phase goes, I'll put a wall down on the other side. Okay. Alright. As far as the other phase go, the button or the controls for moving, everyone kind of did immediately. Everyone knew that clicking on these arrows would move you, and they could pretty easily move around the map. Scanning, people also really like that. It was kind of simple to do. Not a whole lot of people canceled, probably just to see how far it could go. But that worked out pretty well. I might actually display a secondary circle so they can see the max radius before it actually gets there. That might cause people to stop it early or something along those lines. So the button that confused the most people was the disable button. When you click disable, nothing really happens. You can click everywhere. Some people even started clicking these arrows, running around. We had people not able to do anything. We're completely confused as to what to do for almost 5 minutes. So that's a major thing. I feel like the most important fix in this coming week is to fix that. I have a few ideas of how to remedy that situation, but overall, that was the general feeling of it. Uh, uh, the mini games, which is when you're actually disabling something, it people at first started clicking this, but eventually they clicked the button and they felt pretty good about the movement through the mini game. It wasn't very difficult to understand once you clicked on it. However, the checkpoints that were there, as you saw, I moved out of it, but the purple squares, some people thought those were obstacles. That could just be because they're random purple squares right now, or it could just be because of the way it works. I also have an idea of how to reinforce the idea that they are friendly rather than enemy purple things. They were checkpoints. So that's good. Some people, as after they hit this thing, they didn't think to step on it and they kept moving on and weren't sure exactly what to do. So I'm gonna have to reinforce that. Perhaps just with assets, that will be enough to uh, reinforce that you should walk on this thing, but I might do something else. After stepping on the thing, enemy defenses increase. This message wasn't really useful to the players. They didn't know, okay, now you have to go back to the start in order to win. So that is another thing that I should reinforce in several ways, as well as they don't know that they have this fuel cell at all. They have no clue. So I'm going to reinforce that with assets as well. Um, those things were the general feelings of the game. People like the movement throughout the rooms, and they like the control screen in general. Just the disable button was honestly the biggest hitch in the game at the moment as far as the control and flow of the game. So after that, you win. I still have this kind of debug screen for that. Then you go to the main menu. So that was the general feeling of the game, of the playtest. So now we are going to go into the code a bit to show that this is possible. Okay, so I reworked a lot of the networking this past week. Uh, in that, generally, rather than just having a flat connect to this IP, which was the local IP, uh, I've used the Unity master server. In the master server, you register your server, so you have a game type and game name, and you register it to the master server, which is Unity's debug master server. You're allowed to set up your own master server if you'd like, but they have a base master server running at all times. So, I mean, unless it goes down, but so you register the host to the master server. It shows up on that list that you saw while you were waiting for game. Um, and then the client will request this host list, and it will populate a host data, or host data is my list of host data. So it will pull this list and figure out everyone in that list, and then that's what you see when you're waiting for a game. It just pops up, and then I draw that, and then you can connect to it via network.connect. You get the host data. So that's generally how Unity's master server or Unity's server things work. On top of registering to the master list or the master server, you also, of course, have to initialize your server right here. So you initialize and register. But as far as the networking, that's that. And I am going to work on all of the things that I talked about previously and hopefully make this game a lot more readable in the next coming week. Thank you very much.